So I'm not sure if that claim is entirely correct, right? In the sense that in the arts, for example, I think many Singaporeans have made a mark internationally. Um, our films do well in international competitions and festivals. But I would say that because of the way we are with our meritocracy in Singapore and what we choose to value in Singapore, it often means that people like artists have to first make their mark outside of Singapore before they could even be recognized within Singapore. And so that's often an unfortunate tactic that our artists have to adopt, which is to find affirmation and accreditation and success in the international circles before Singapore would even pay any attention to them. And there have been, well, not exactly like this, but similar to this. In the past, there have been lots of really talented Singapore musicians who either found it impossible to make a living in Singapore and have had to go overseas, or they were not allowed to pursue international opportunities because of such things as national service. So they missed international opportunities, and so they gave up the national service but went abroad. So I'm thinking of pianists like Melvin Tan or Margaret Ling Tan, and all these are now she's interesting because she was the very first the very first woman in the world to do a PhD at Juilliard, and she was from Singapore. So you got all these success stories of Singaporeans, but success stories that, in a way, also point to an internal tragedy, right? That we don't appreciate our own. We look at our own always as second class, and our own can only achieve affirmation outside. So here's a third kind of example. So you have the first example of people who cannot, find no opportunities in Singapore. The second example of people who tactically get international accreditation so that they can do well in Singapore. And then the third kind, which is the censoriousness of Singapore. And I'm thinking of Sunny Liu as an example, right? Who wrote an incredible graphic novel, which had this support, the financial support of the Singapore National Arts Council, but it was critical. And when they found it to be too critical, they pulled the funding of that project very, very shortly before I think the project was to be launched. So they went ahead with that project without Singapore funding, and that project won what's equivalent to the Oscars of graphic novels in the world, right? So you got a Singaporean who's produced this work of art that the Arts Council disavowed and pulled funding out of, and that went on to win the top award in the world for graphic novels. Right? So you got that sort of story as well, where not only do we ignore the success stories in Singapore, we also sometimes clamp down on them when they're politically unpalatable, and then the rest of the world appreciates it for what it is. And maybe I should say a fourth example, which is the response of the establishment to Singaporeans who, without Singapore's help, go overseas, succeed, and then come back, and then the establishment take some credit for this success. I'm thinking of the swimmer Joseph Schooling, right, who got hardly any support from Singapore, but then on his own, with his parents' money, went to train overseas, and then won an Olympic gold. And when he came back with that gold, my goodness, those months, everybody wanted a selfie with him, right? So it's that sort of situation that I think we're in, and it says something about our notion of meritocracy, right? Very narrow. We don't necessarily pay enough attention to cultivating our own. We want to bask in the glory of success even if that success has absolutely nothing to do with Singapore. And that's at one level a shame, but at another level, it's also a waste of the talent that we actually have in Singapore. We focus too much on a narrow elite, and everyone else who is totally capable, able to contribute in so many ways to Singapore, we consign to another category altogether, and we demotivate, we demoralize, and we chase out people from our system. And then we say we lack talent, and so we need foreign talent. And that seems to be a thoroughly irrational part of our system.